Hello, this is Mr. Maximus Film. Today I'm reviewing the classic 1972 album by Genesis known as Foxtrot. And Foxtrot is my second favorite Genesis album because it's the sound of Genesis coming together with what they want to do. They just hired Steve Hackett and Phil Collins during the Nursery Crime album, or that was the first album with Steve Hackett and Phil Collins. And it still retained very much of a lot of the trespass sound, sort of that pastoral English motif. But with Foxtrot, they solidify it a bit more, and they also experiment with different themes. Like I said, the trespass and the nursery crime sound was a lot more pastoral British noodling. Here it's a lot more sci-fi, science fiction oriented, with some of the lyrics especially. And also the sound is a lot more tight and a lot more pleasurable to listen to. And it's a masterpiece of progressive rock music because of the inclusion of Supper's Ready, which in my opinion is the best progressive rock epic ever made. Because for me, it completely wipes away the issues that I had personally with the concept of a 20-minute rock song. And I'll get into further detail. And this is also where Genesis's the Peter Gabriel Genesis can't talk. The Peter Gabriel Genesis theatricality really comes in, and live with the costumes, with the bat wings and the flowers and just him being crazy on stage. And so this is really where classic Genesis finds their footing. Getting into the tracks, it opens up with Watcher of the Skies, which is great track, great opening. Of course, most of you will probably know that it opens up with the Mellotron solo from Tony Banks, which really creates this feeling like you're in the air, you're in space, or something like that. And great Mellotron, probably the most effective use of the instrument in progressive rock. I'm not a huge fan of Mellotron. It just kind of sounds 70-ish and cheesy, but they use it very effectively there for that song. Of course, the lyrics are about aliens and them interfering with the human race. Great thumpity thump thump beat going throughout the entire thing. It's a very skittered and powerful beat going throughout it, which is really nice. Great organ by Tony Banks on that song after the Mellotron solo. It's followed by Timetable, which is lyrically in the same vein as the previous two albums, with themes of, I wish things could be the way they were when knights and castles were in the sky, and then blah 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 blah. Pastoral English, medieval stuff. Great piano, though. I really like the piano on that song. It's probably the most chilled song on the album. It has a very chilled atmosphere. The guitar is very in the background by Steve Hackett and chilled. And it's a good song. It works well with the rest of the album. And then we have an 8-minute piece called Get 'Em Out by Friday, which really exemplifies the theatricality of the band at this point. Peter Gabriel, it's like a mini musical or opera with Peter Gabriel singing the different voices of the characters that are going throughout the story. And of course, this story is inspired by a science fiction concept about how the government is buying out properties and trying to get everybody to be 4 feet in height, and it's crazy. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It is busy, but they use the dynamics in the song really effectively. So when they're talking about the government trying to buy out properties and stuff, it's very fast paced. But when it's talking about the people who are being affected by it, it's very mourning and chilled feel. And that works really nice. I like the way they use the dynamics, and of course Peter Gabriel's theatricality. Great bass in there by Mike Rutherford if you pay attention to it. Getting into Ken Utility and the Coastliners, which follows. It's probably the most complicated song because if you take into account that it's not very long, it's about 4 minutes. I think, I could be wrong. It's not that long. and it's there's so much going on. It's very complicated. I don't have a lot of. It's probably my least favorite song on the album, but it works well. It's not a bad song. I really like the ending though. The ending gets really intense, and it's a good song. It's not their best. Then Horizons starts up the second side of the album, what would be the second side of the album if you were listening to it on vinyl. And it's a great solo acoustic piece from Steve Hackett. It really shows his ability at the classical style playing on guitar. Really good. It works as a nice prelude, of course, to Supper's Ready, which is what follows. But I really like that song for some reason. It rivals the classical playing of Steve Howe as he did with things with Yes, like Mood for a Day and The Clap, etc. And I think it's a bit better. I like Steve Hackett as a guitarist. And Supper's Ready is what follows, and it's probably my favorite progressive rock epic song. And, you know, it takes up most of the second side of the album, the second back half of the album. And it's with progressive rock epics at this time, it seemed like all the prog bands were doing it, you know. You had Yes with Close to the Edge, which was around the same time as this album. I could be wrong. I think it was 1972. I completely forgot. I completely blanked out. Of course, you had Pink Floyd with Echoes. There was a lot of progressive rock epics at the time. And Supper's Ready is a completely different from the pack. It feels more like a mini concept album, more than an entire piece. It feels like a bunch of songs spliced together. And that's probably what it is, that. It's a bunch of songs spliced together to make one very long piece. And that really takes care of the problem with progressive rock epics with me, how they tend to go on with one section for too long. And so because of the, you know, the shortness of each section, it keeps it busy, it keeps it interesting, and I just absolutely love it. Of course, it's about the apocalypse. It starts out with a story of, you know, two lovers just chilled one night. You know, great acoustic, 12-string acoustic pieces, probably from Mike Rutherford. And it has a very nice sprite of a piano solo, or electric keyboard solo from Tony Banks. And then it gets into The Guaranteed Eternal Sanctuary Man, I believe is the complete title. I can never remember it. Which is this kind of epic section. You know, they see these hooded figures, and then it just kind of gets crazy after that. And it's just truly a journey of a song. And, you know, it gets into the battle, and it's just beautifully paced, great transition sections to link all the bits and pieces together. And the way they put Willow Farm there is brilliant, too, because after a while, after How Dare I Be So Beautiful, you're like, this is getting very concept-heavy. And then Willow Song comes in, which is this very theatrical song that plays with wordplay, and you know, it's famous because during the live performances, and when he says Narcissus turns into a flower at the end of How Dare I Be So Beautiful, which is another great section with gentle piano chords that play with volume. And then once he says Narcissus turns into flower, he comes up and he's in a flower costume and he says, a flower? And then, you know, it gets into this very English section, which takes a break from the whole intensity of the concept. And then, of course, towards the end, it gets into the apocalypse part. You know, serpents coming out of the sea, you know, 666. Chaotic keyboard solo from Tony Banks in the Apocalypse and 9/8 section. Great band jam. And then what probably takes the cake for the song, for me, is the vocal delivery by Peter Gabriel at the end. He's singing. I probably took this from somewhere, but he is literally singing for his life at the end. His soulful vocals, which I've talked about in the Genesis box set review, which I love, his theatrical soulful vocals are really pushed to the limit. You know, when he's talking about there's an angel standing in the sun, and, you know, the two lovers are witnessing this apocalypse. The way he sings it, it's, you know, heartrending, and it really works well, and it's a fantastic climax to the piece. So it's my favorite progressive rock epic because it's busy, it's interesting, there's lots of different sections, but they're nicely tied together, and It's just a great performance by Genesis. It's probably their defining song. So there's not really a bad spot on this album. Like I said, Can Utility and the Coastliners is, questionable. But it's overall, this is the first Genesis album I heard, actually. And it's a masterpiece of progressive rock because it takes away a lot of the pretentiousness, in my opinion. The pretentiousness that was attached to it at the time. Because Genesis, they were pretentious. But yet at the same time, they were a bit witty. And they didn't take themselves all too seriously. So it really, for me, takes away a lot of the flaws of progressive rock music. And that's why I really come back to this album a lot. Supper's Ready is a fantastic piece. I can't say much more about it. And it just works really well. And it's a defining moment for Genesis. Getting into the packaging, Genesis Foxtrot, and of course you have the fox here. And Peter Gabriel would dress up as a fox live. Of course, this is the Genesis box set edition, so it's a CD and a DVD. So CD, DVD. It has great footage. I don't listen to the surround sound all that much. I like the extras with the interview and the live footage, because the studio portion was only one part of Genesis. The live was a whole different story with the costumes. Famous Charisma label, we all know that. Foxtrot. I really like the Charisma labels with the Mad Hatter and the Alice in Wonderland and the Cheshire Cat. Of course, that's the back cover with the alien British soldiers on there. And let me try to get this booklet out. It's a gatefold, and this is the design that runs throughout the entire thing, with the clouds reminiscent of Watcher of the Skies and the lyrics. And very good booklet. Nice print quality or whatever. And get that back in there. Sorry about that. So what would I give this album that I've been rambling on about? This is a tricky thing for me, because is it a perfect album? No. So I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10, because I just really enjoy it. It's not entirely perfect, though, but it is a defining moment for Genesis. This is Mr. Maximus Film. This is Genesis' Foxtrot. I've listened to The Wall today. I'm going to do the Wall review today, and hopefully have that up. And I'll see you guys next time.